She wed a human for politics. Then he fought with the power of a god of war. The first warning came quietly, hidden inside ceremonial music and forced smiles. The great hall of stars on Vierxia Prime shimmered with living crystal walls, glowing softly in colors that shifted with emotion. Nobles, commanders, and foreign envoys gathered in silence as the final words of the marriage contract echoed through the chamber. This union was not born of love or hope, it was born of fear. Empress-designate Elthira stood tall at the center of the hall, her posture flawless, her expression calm. To her people, she looked unbreakable. Only those closest to her knew the truth. Vierxia was surrounded. Three rival powers watched its borders, waiting for weakness. The strongest of them, the Carthax Collective, had already begun probing attacks. Vierxia needed allies, and quickly. That was why a human stood beside her. Marcus Hale did not look impressive to alien eyes. He was tall for a human, but small compared to Vierxian warriors. He wore a simple dark uniform, no armor, no visible weapon. His face showed no pride, no fear, no excitement. He simply stood there, hands at his sides, eyes steady. Many in the hall whispered among themselves. This was the creature chosen to secure their future. Elthira did not look at him, not yet. The Galactic Council had pushed the idea hard. Humans were adaptable, stubborn, and surprisingly diplomatic. They lacked great fleets, but they made strong promises and kept them. More importantly, the Carthax disliked them. A marriage would signal alignment. That alone might buy time. The vow ceremony ended. The hall erupted into controlled applause. Elthira turned at last and faced her new husband. Their eyes met for the first time since entering the chamber. Marcus inclined his head slightly, a respectful gesture, not dominance, not submission, just respect. Elthira acknowledged it with a nod of her own. In that moment, a binding older than law settled between them. Not affection, duty. As they walked together from the hall, guards flanked them in perfect formation. The doors closed behind them and the noise faded. Only silence remained. "You understand this is political," Elthira said at last, her voice even. "Yes," Marcus replied simply. "There will be expectations. I know. You may be ignored, you may be mocked. I've been ignored before." His calm unsettled her. Most off-worlders tried too hard to impress. Marcus did not try at all. They reached the private corridor reserved for the ruling line. Elthira stopped walking and turned to face him fully. "You are not here to command," she said. "You are not here to fight." Marcus met her gaze. "I'm here to stand where I'm needed." That answer gave her pause. She dismissed the guards and continued alone with him. As they walked, alarms echoed faintly through the distant layers of the city. Elthira stiffened. "What was that?" Marcus asked. "Border alert," she said. "Minor, most likely." But she knew better. The timing was too precise. Hours later, the truth arrived in the war chamber. A massive Carthax fleet had crossed into disputed space. Not an invasion yet. A message. Admirals argued loudly. Generals demanded immediate retaliation. Council members spoke of diplomacy and restraint. Elthira listened, silent, absorbing every word. Marcus stood behind her throne, unmoving. When projections shifted and red threat markers multiplied, he leaned forward slightly. "They're testing response times," he said quietly. Several officers turned, annoyed. "And you know this, how human?" one snapped. Marcus did not react to the insult. "Their formation leaves escape corridors open. They expect pursuit, not resistance." The room fell quiet for a moment. Elthira studied the display again, then she looked at Marcus. "You've seen this before." "Yes," he said. "Different names." "Same behavior," the Admiral frowned. "Humans have not fought the Carthax." "No," Marcus agreed, "but we fought ourselves." That earned uneasy glances. The Council dismissed his comment and moved on. Orders were given, fleets mobilized defensively. The meeting ended with no clear resolution. As they left, Elthira slowed her steps. "You think they will attack?" "They will," Marcus said, "sooner than you expect." That night the palace shook. Sirens screamed, lights dimmed. The sky outside the crystal windows burned as orbital defenses activated. Carthax strike vessels breached the outer line, faster and deeper than predicted. Elthira moved instantly, issuing commands, her voice steady despite the chaos. Marcus followed without question. In the evacuation corridors, a blast rocked the structure. Guards were thrown aside. Smoke filled the air. Marcus caught a falling support beam with both hands and forced it back into place long enough for civilians to pass. The metal groaned, then held. Several guards stared at him in shock. Human strength readings had always been modest. What they just saw did not match the data. They reached the command bunker as news worsened. The enemy had targeted communication relays and defense nodes with surgical precision. Someone had studied Vierxia well. Elthira stood before the main display, fury burning beneath her calm. "They want us afraid," she said. Marcus nodded. "They want you to react." She turned to him sharply. "Then tell me what to do." The words surprised them both. Marcus did not answer immediately. He studied the battlefield feeds, his eyes moving faster than most sensors could track. "You have something old," he said finally. "Something you stopped using." The chamber quieted. "The relic vault," Elthira said slowly. "It was sealed for a reason," a general argued. "Those weapons are myths." Marcus shook his head. "They're not weapons, they're systems." Elthira remembered ancient texts, stories of warrior kings and gods of war. She had always believed them symbolic. "Why would they respond to you?" she asked. Marcus met her gaze. For the first time, something heavy stirred behind his calm. "Because they were built with us in mind," he said. Before she could ask more, the bunker shuddered again. A Carthax dread unit had broken through the inner defense ring. Elthira made her choice. "Open the vault," she commanded. Alarms wailed as ancient seals began to unlock deep beneath the palace. Systems dormant for thousands of years stirred awake. Marcus closed his eyes briefly, as if listening to something no one else could hear. Above them, the war for Vierxia had begun. Deep beneath the palace, the ancient corridors came alive. Lights that had not burned for centuries flickered on, glowing in deep red and gold. Massive doors slid apart with a sound like distant thunder. Dust lifted into the air as systems older than the modern empire awakened. The relic vault of Vierxia was no myth. It was a memory carved into stone and metal, waiting for the right moment to be remembered. Elthira stood at the edge of the platform as the final seal disengaged. Her advisors watched in fear and awe. Some whispered prayers, others recorded everything, unable to look away. Marcus stepped forward. The moment he crossed the threshold, the vault reacted. Symbols flared across the walls, responding not to command codes or royal authority, but to his presence. Energy surged through conduits that had been dead for ages. The floor vibrated beneath his boots. Elthira felt it in her bones. "What is happening?" one of the engineers whispered. Marcus did not answer. His breathing slowed. His posture changed, no longer relaxed, no longer passive. It was not anger that shaped him, but focus. The kind born from long experience. At the center of the chamber stood a massive structure, tall and broad, shaped like a standing warrior of metal and crystal. It was not a machine in the common sense. It looked almost alive. "The war frame," Elthira said softly, recognizing it from ancient murals. The engineers stared at the readings in disbelief. The system was syncing, adjusting, rewriting limits in real time. "It's calibrating to him," one said, "not the other way around." Marcus placed his hand on the surface. The frame opened. Not violently, not suddenly. It unfolded like something welcoming its other half. Plates shifted, light flowed, and the interior revealed itself. Marcus stepped inside without hesitation. The chamber sealed around him. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the war frame powered up. Energy levels spiked beyond safe margins. Old warning symbols flared and vanished as the system ignored them. The structure straightened, standing taller, broader, heavier, not clumsy, perfectly balanced. When the faceplate slid into place, the room fell silent. Marcus's voice came through the chamber speakers, calm and steady. "System is stable," he said. The engineers exchanged looks of disbelief. Outside, the war worsened. Carthax forces pushed deeper into the city. Their machines were brutal and efficient, tearing through defense lines with cold precision. Vierxian soldiers fought bravely, but the enemy adapted faster than expected. Elthira watched the feeds, her claws clenched tightly. "How long?" she asked. Marcus answered immediately. "I'm ready." She hesitated. Sending him out meant revealing something that could never be hidden again. But hesitation now meant defeat. "Deploy," she ordered. The war frame launched from the palace depths, tearing through layers of stone and shielding as if they were mist. It emerged into the burning sky, landing amid chaos with force that cracked the ground. Every sensor locked onto him. Carthax units paused mid-advance. They had not expected this. The war frame moved, not like a charging beast, not like a reckless hero. It moved like a veteran soldier who had already seen every possible mistake and refused to repeat any. Marcus advanced through the battlefield, disabling machines with precise strikes. He did not waste motion. He did not roar or challenge. He dismantled. Ilthera watched as a Carthax walker collapsed after a single calculated blow to its joint core. Another was torn apart as Marcus used its own weight against it. Enemy fire struck him repeatedly, but the frame absorbed, redirected, and learned. Enemy weapons are losing effectiveness, a commander reported. They're adapting too slowly. For the first time since the invasion began, hope spread through the command center. The Carthax reacted swiftly. Heavy units were redeployed. A specialized hunter squad dropped directly into Marcus's path, creatures bred for war, equipped with adaptive armor and swarm tactics. They surrounded him. Marcus stopped. For a single heartbeat, the battlefield seemed to hold its breath. Then he moved again. What followed was not chaos, but control. He used terrain, timing, and the enemy's own aggression against them. One by one, the hunters fell, not destroyed in fury, but neutralized with cold efficiency. Observers across the galaxy watched the feeds in stunned silence. "This is not rage," a council analyst whispered. "This is training." The Carthax command corps pulsed with anger and confusion. Humans were not supposed to be this. They escalated. A dread unit descended, massive and heavily armored, carrying enough firepower to level districts. It locked onto Marcus immediately. Ilthera's breath caught. Even the Warframe systems warned of danger. Marcus did not retreat. "Redirect civilians," he said calmly. "I'll hold it here." "You cannot face that alone," Ilthera replied. "I won't be alone," he said. "I'll be human." The dread unit fired. The impact shook the city. Smoke and fire filled the air. For a moment, Marcus vanished from sight. Then the smoke cleared. The Warframe still stood, damaged, scorched, but standing. Marcus advanced again, step by step, closing the distance under constant fire. He reached the dread unit and climbed its armored shell, tearing into weak points identified in seconds. With a final strike, the dread unit collapsed. The battlefield erupted in cheers. But the war was not over. Deep within Carthax territory, something stirred, something old and terrible. The collective had saved it for legends and last resorts. A champion. As Marcus returned to the palace for brief repairs, Ilthera waited for him at the landing platform. When the frame opened, she saw his face clearly for the first time since the battle began. He looked tired, focused, human. "You could have died," she said. "Yes," Marcus replied, "but we didn't." She studied him carefully. "You were never meant to be a symbol." "No," he agreed. "But symbols follow actions." Alarms sounded again. A new signature appeared on the display, massive, singular, powerful. The room fell silent as data scrolled in. "The Carthax champion," an analyst whispered. "They've never deployed it before." Marcus looked at the projection. "Then they're afraid," he said. Ilthera felt a strange shift within herself. What began as political necessity had become something far deeper and far more dangerous. The galaxy was watching. And humanity had just taken its first step onto a battlefield it had once walked alone. The sky above Vierxia Prime darkened as if the world itself sensed what was coming. Clouds twisted into heavy spirals, lit from within by distant fires and the glow of burning ships in orbit. Across the capital, civilians were rushed into shelters while soldiers regrouped behind shattered defense lines. Everyone felt it, the pressure, the silence before something terrible arrived. In the command center, no one spoke as the new enemy signature stabilized on the main display. It was enormous, not a fleet, not a formation, a single entity moving toward the planet with steady, deliberate speed. Its mass readings shifted constantly, as if its structure refused to settle into one shape. Energy levels spiked and fell in strange rhythms, far beyond normal weapons or engines. Ilthera stood at the center of the room, her gaze fixed on the projection. "That is their champion," she said quietly, "the one from their oldest war legends." Analysts confirmed it with trembling voices. Records were sparse, fragmented, passed down through defeated civilizations. Wherever the champion had appeared, resistance collapsed soon after. Worlds surrendered or burned. No army had ever stopped it. Marcus stood nearby, listening. The warframe behind him was still open, technicians moving quickly to repair damaged systems. Scorched plating was replaced, internal conduits reinforced. The frame looked less like a machine now and more like a waiting presence. "How long until it reaches the city?" Ilthera asked. "Less than one cycle," an officer replied. "Our fleets are repositioning, but projections show minimal effect." Elthira closed her eyes briefly. She had married for time. Humanity was supposed to buy hesitation, not draw monsters out of myth. She turned to Marcus. "You don't have to face this." Marcus looked at the display again. His expression did not change, but something deeper stirred behind his eyes. Memory. Recognition. "They built that thing to break morale," he said, "to end wars without long fights." "You've seen something like it," Elthira said. "Yes," Marcus replied, "not that exact form, but the idea." The technicians stepped back as the warframe completed its final checks. The system hummed softly, steady and calm. Elthira took a step closer to Marcus. "If you fall," she said, "Vyrexia falls with you." Marcus met her gaze. "Then I won't fall." There was no pride in his voice, no promise of victory, only certainty. The champion entered the atmosphere without slowing. Its shape became clear as it descended. Towering, broad, built from layers of dark adaptive armor that shifted with every scan. Limbs like reinforced pillars ended in weapons grown directly into its form. Its head was narrow, faceless, with a single pulsing core where eyes should have been. Carthag's forces pulled back as it landed outside the city perimeter. They gave it space. The ground shook as it stepped forward. Each movement cracked stone and metal. Defensive batteries opened fire at once. Energy beams and kinetic rounds struck its armor and vanished, absorbed or deflected without effect. The champion did not react. Elthira felt her chest tighten. "Deploy all remaining heavy units," she ordered, though she already knew it would not be enough. Marcus stepped into the warframe. The armor sealed around him with a soft hiss. Power flowed, systems syncing instantly. The frame straightened, taller than before, its presence sharp and focused. "I'll draw it away from the city," Marcus said over the open channel. "Keep evacuation moving." "You will be alone," Elthira said. "I was trained for that," he replied. The war frame launched. It streaked across the battlefield, landing hard between the champion and the outer districts. Dust and debris exploded outward from the impact. For the first time, the champion stopped moving. It turned. Sensors flared as the two forces faced each other. One born of ancient alien terror, the other a human wrapped in forgotten technology. The champion spoke. Its voice was not sound but pressure, transmitted directly into nearby minds, a declaration of dominance, a promise of ending. Marcus felt it press against him, testing, probing for fear. He stood firm. The war frame advanced. The champion attacked first, swinging a massive arm with enough force to flatten buildings. Marcus moved at the last possible moment, letting the blow pass inches from him before striking the joint with concentrated force. The impact staggered the champion. It had not expected resistance. The battle escalated instantly. The champion adapted, shifting armor patterns, altering weapon forms mid-motion. Marcus responded with precision, changing tactics constantly, never repeating the same movement twice. He used speed, angles, and timing rather than brute strength. Observers watched in stunned silence. "This isn't a clash," one analyst whispered. "It's a duel." The champion unleashed a shockwave that tore through the ground. Marcus was thrown back, skidding across broken stone. Warning lights flared across his systems. He rose anyway. Inside the frame, Marcus breathed steadily. Pain registered, then faded. He had known worse. He had trained through worse. The champion charged. Marcus met it head-on. They collided with force that cracked the battlefield open. Energy flared, armor screeched, and for a moment neither moved. Then Marcus shifted his stance and redirected the force, using the champion's mass against it. The champion stumbled. Elthira's claws dug into her palms. "He's matching it," she breathed. "Yes," an officer replied. "But it's learning." The champion adapted again, striking faster, harder, pushing Marcus back inch by inch. The war frame absorbed damage, but limits approached. Marcus saw it too. He changed tactics. Instead of meeting strength with strength, he targeted balance, timing, and perception. He drew the champion into overextending, then punished every mistake. Each exchange slowed the monster slightly. Frustration rippled from the champion. For the first time, it made a sound that was not a declaration. A roar. The battlefield shook as it unleashed everything at once. Marcus braced. The blast consumed the space between them. Systems screamed. Armor cracked. The war frame dropped to one knee. For a heartbeat, the galaxy held its breath. Then Marcus stood. He forced power through damaged systems, rerouting, adapting, refusing to stop. The frame responded, not because it was programmed to, but because it recognized his will. Marcus charged. This time the champion fell back. The realization spread quickly through Carthax's ranks. Their ultimate weapon was being challenged, not overwhelmed. Challenged. Fear began to replace certainty. With a final, precise strike, Marcus drove into the champion's core structure. Energy surged wildly, then collapsed inward. The champion froze. Its systems failed in a cascading shutdown. The massive form fell forward, crashing into the ground, motionless. Silence followed. Then cheers erupted across Viewership Prime. Marcus stood amid the wreckage, the war frame scarred but upright. He did not celebrate. He simply breathed. Elthira watched him from the command center, her heart racing. The human she had married for politics had just faced the galaxy's greatest terror and endured. Humanity was no longer a minor species. It was something the stars would now remember. The fall of the champion did not end the war. It changed its shape. Across the battlefield, Carthax units froze in place, their formations breaking apart as confusion spread through their command networks. For generations, the champion had been the final answer, the certainty that no resistance could stand forever. Now it lay broken on foreign soil, defeated by a single human. On Viewership Prime, cheers echoed through shelters and command halls, but the celebration was cautious. Experienced commanders knew this moment well. When a powerful enemy loses its greatest weapon, it does not surrender immediately. It looks for another way to win. Marcus remained where he stood, surrounded by the wreckage. The Warframe's systems worked constantly to stabilize damage. Armor plates were cracked. Power levels were low, but he was alive. Elthira's voice came through the channel, steady but filled with something new. Status. Standing, Marcus replied. Frame is damaged but functional. Return immediately, she ordered. Do not engage further. Marcus looked toward the horizon where Carthax's forces regrouped at a cautious distance. They're pulling back, he said, but they're not leaving. As if to confirm his words, long-range sensors flared across the command center. Multiple hyperspace distortions appeared at the edge of the system, not retreat signals, reinforcements. Elthira felt a cold weight settle in her chest. They're calling the fleets. Yes, Marcus said. They expected to win fast, now they'll try to win completely. Within hours, the sky above Viewership Prime filled with distant lights as Carthax's war fleets arrived in overwhelming numbers. Heavy carriers, siege platforms, ships designed not for battle alone, but for occupation. The Galactic Council watched from afar, silent and afraid. In distant chambers across neutral worlds, ambassadors argued in hushed tones. Some demanded intervention. Others warned against provoking the Carthax further. Many looked to humanity's representatives, waiting for them to speak. Human space remained quiet. That silence unsettled everyone. On Viewership Prime, emergency councils gathered. Commanders argued for evacuation of the ruling core. Some urged surrender, claiming the champion's loss would only enrage the enemy. Elthira listened, then raised her hand. The room fell silent. We will not surrender, she said calmly. Not now, a general protested. Empress, our defenses cannot withstand a full siege. Elthira turned slightly and looked toward Marcus, who stood near the chamber entrance, still wearing a partial interface from the war frame. Then we change the battlefield, she said. Marcus understood immediately. They want a symbol, he said, a demonstration. Yes, Elthira replied. They want to erase what you did today. Marcus nodded slowly. Then we show them they can't. Plans moved quickly, not reckless. Calculated, Viewership's fleets would not meet the Carthax head-on. Instead, they would form defensive layers, drawing enemy ships into narrow engagement zones near asteroid belts and gravity wells. Meanwhile, something else would happen, something no one expected. Deep within the palace, ancient systems stirred again. The relic vault had not awakened just one system. It had reactivated an entire network. Old sensors scanned space in ways modern technology could not. Forgotten beacons began transmitting signals across vast distances, coded in patterns long abandoned by the galaxy. Human space responded. The first human ships arrived quietly. They did not announce themselves. They did not broadcast threats. Small fleets slipped into the system through unconventional jump paths, positioning themselves with precision. Carthax sensors struggled to track them. Human ships looked simple compared to alien warcraft. Angular, compact, practical, but their movement was confident, deliberate. Elthira watched the tactical display in silence as more signals appeared. You planned this, she said to Marcus. No, Marcus replied. We prepared for the possibility. For centuries, she said softly. Yes, he agreed. We learn from near extinction. The first major engagement began near the outer defense ring. Carthax destroyers advanced, expecting minimal resistance. Instead, they found human vessels weaving through fire, exploiting blind spots, striking supply ships rather than front-line units. It was not overwhelming force. It was disruption. Carthax formations faltered, orders conflicted. Coordination broke down. Vierxian fleets struck next, hitting weakened targets with renewed confidence. Across the battlefield, the pattern repeated. Humans did not fight like conquerors. They fought like survivors, forcing the enemy to react, to overextend, to make mistakes. The Carthax command corps grew angry. A massive siege platform began charging its primary weapon, targeting the city directly. If it fired, Vierxia Prime would be scarred forever. Marcus saw the buildup instantly. I'm going back out, he said. Elthira turned sharply. Your frame cannot withstand another battle. I won't fight the fleet, Marcus replied. I'll end the threat. Before she could argue, he was already moving. The war frame launched once more, pushing beyond safe limits. It streaked toward the siege platform as human ships provided cover, drawing fire away from him. The platform's weapon reached critical charge. Marcus reached it just in time. He did not attack the weapon itself. Instead, he breached the platform's external structure, tearing into its control systems with brutal efficiency. Inside, automated defenses swarmed him. He adapted. Every movement was precise. Every strike served a purpose. Systems failed one by one as he advanced toward the core. The platform shuddered. Energy buildup destabilized. Marcus rerouted power away from the weapon, forcing a controlled shutdown just before overload. The siege platform went dark. Across the battlefield, Carthax morale shattered. Their fleets began withdrawing in disorder, retreating beyond effective range. Not rooted, not destroyed, but shaken. They had expected fear. They had found resistance. The battle slowed, then stopped. Silence spread through the system. On Vierxia Prime, Elthira watched Marcus return for the second time. The war frame was barely holding together now. When it opened, he stumbled slightly before regaining balance. She moved without thinking, steadying him. For a brief moment, protocol vanished. You should have died, she said quietly. Yes, Marcus replied, but today wasn't the day. She studied him closely, not as a political ally, not as a weapon, but as someone who had chosen to stand beside her world when he did not have to. The galaxy will never forget this, she said. Marcus looked toward the stars where Carthax ships faded into distant points of light. They shouldn't, he said, because this wasn't our strongest response. Elthira turned to him slowly. What do you mean? Marcus met her gaze. This was restraint. The realization sent a chill through her. The war was not over, but the balance of power had shifted, and the galaxy had just learned that humanity did not need gods. They only needed a reason. The stars above Vierxia Prime slowly returned to calm. Burning wreckage faded as emergency crews worked without rest. The air no longer shook with explosions. For the first time since the invasion began, the city slept without sirens, but the galaxy did not. Across hundreds of systems, recordings of the battle spread from one relay to another. Not edited, not explained, just raw truth. A single human standing against a weapon of legend, fleets retreating instead of advancing, an empire surviving when it was meant to fall. The Galactic Council reconvened in emergency session. This time the chamber was full. Species that had once ignored human delegates now watched them carefully, some with respect, some with fear, all with new understanding. The council speaker finally broke the silence. The Carthax offensive has halted, they said. They have withdrawn beyond contested space. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. They have never done that, one delegate whispered. A human representative stood slowly, not Marcus, another, calm, ordinary. They withdrew because they learned something, the human said. So did the rest of you. No one interrupted. On Vierxia Prime, Marcus rested in a medical wing deep within the palace. The war frame had been moved to a sealed chamber, its systems dormant once more. Engineers examined it with reverence now, no longer questioning its purpose. Marcus lay still, eyes open, staring at the ceiling. He was alive, but the cost lingered. His muscles ached. His thoughts felt heavy, not from pain, but from memory. The door opened quietly. Elthira entered alone. She dismissed the guards without a word and moved closer, her steps slow, careful. She had not worn ceremonial armor since the war ended. She looked less like an empress now, more like a leader who had survived. "You should be resting," she said softly. "So should you," Marcus replied. She allowed a small smile. "I will later." She sat beside him, silence stretching between them. It was not awkward, it was earned. "The Council has sent formal recognition," she said. "They are reclassifying humanity." Marcus glanced toward her. "What label did they choose?" "Strategic equals," she said. "With advisory authority," he exhaled slowly. "That's a start." Ilthera studied his face. "You changed everything." Marcus shook his head slightly. "No, I reminded them." "Of what?" "That humans don't need permission to stand their ground." Outside the palace, crowds gathered, not to celebrate war but survival. Vierxians lit lights in honor of those lost. Among them, human envoys stood quietly, not separate, not elevated, just present. The days passed. Carthag's space remained silent. No threats, no messages, no challenges. Intelligence reports suggested internal conflict within their command structure. The champions' defeat had fractured their certainty. They had ruled through inevitability, and inevitability had failed. Ilthera called for a final address to her people and the galaxy beyond. The broadcast reached every major relay. She stood before the great crystal wall once more, but this time Marcus stood beside her openly, not behind, not in shadow. "My people," she began. "We were attacked because we were believed weak. We survived because we refused to accept that belief." She turned slightly toward Marcus. "We sought an alliance for politics. We gained something greater." The camera focused briefly on him. He did not speak. He did not gesture. He simply stood. "Let this be known," Ilthera continued. "Vierxia does not stand alone, and neither does humanity." The message spread like fire. In human space, quiet worlds took note. Old defense systems were checked, training protocols updated. Not because war was certain, but because peace was fragile. Marcus recovered slowly. When he finally walked again through the palace halls, people stopped and bowed, not because they were ordered to, because they wanted to. He acknowledged them all the same way, with a nod. With respect, one evening, as stars drifted beyond the balcony, Ilthera joined him once more. "You could leave," she said. "The treaty is fulfilled." Marcus looked out at the city. Rebuilt districts glowed with life. Ships moved peacefully through controlled lanes. "Yes," he said. "I could." She waited. "But I won't," he added. She did not ask why. The truth was already clear. The galaxy adjusted. Trade routes shifted. Military doctrines were rewritten. Ancient archives were re-examined. Humanity was no longer studied as a curiosity, but as a factor. A species that endured. A species that waited. A species that did not seek war but did not fear it. Far beyond known space, Carthag's observers watched from hidden stations. They recorded human movement, human restraint, human patience, and for the first time in their long history, they planned not how to conquer, but how to coexist. Weeks later, Marcus returned to the relic vault one last time. The war frame stood silent, dormant once more. Ilthera joined him there. "You won't use it again?" she said. "No," Marcus replied. "Not unless it's needed." She nodded. "And if it is," he looked at the ancient machine, "then I'll stand again." The vault sealed behind them, not because the past was dangerous, but because it had served its purpose. Above Vierxia Prime, the stars burned quietly, and across the galaxy, a simple truth settled into place. Gods were myths, weapons were tools, but humans were something else entirely. They were the ones who chose to fight, and more importantly, they were the ones who knew when not to.